The coaches poll comes out. Georgia ranked number 5. Alabama, Clemson 1-2. And then Oklahoma and Ohio State 3-4. Matt DeBerry, Dean Legge for another edition of Riding Home. Matt, quick reaction. I mean, Georgia at 5. I certainly think they're one of the top 5 teams, but they're apparently the worst of the 5.
Yeah, Clemson number 2. Is that right? Maybe I'm not as
Clemson
high
number
on
2.
Clemson as a lot of other people. I don't think they're the second best team in the country. I just think they lost way too much, and I think the
Who
defense.
do you think is the second best team?
I would probably say Oklahoma right now until they fall to Kansas State or an Iowa State in the middle of the season. But I think their defense is getting better slowly. I think they've got a proven quarterback. I love Clemson's quarterback right now, but he only started one game last year, so I think he's a little more unproven than Spencer Rattler. I think Alabama.
I think he actually started.
Number one
I
team.
think he actually started 2 games. I'm sorry.
2 games. As good as I think he is, and I think he's going to have a big game against Georgia, I just still think they are missing too many guys. I'm not sold on their offensive line. I'm not sold on their running game. And I think their defense has some questions outside of the defensive line. So number 2, I think, is a little high for Clemson. I expected Georgia to be either 4 or 5. And again, they're a top 5 program in the country, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. And going into the season, that's not a surprise that they're still in that top 5.
Well, I'll tell you right now, for Georgia and you want to be higher, you need to go win the national championship. I mean, nobody feels sorry for you. And, in the last 5 years, all of these programs have had, sort of down years, I guess you could say. Alabama in 2019, Clemson, I would think 17 wasn't a great year for them. Oklahoma, I'd say last year was not ideal. And Ohio State, I would have to go back and look a little bit. It might have been 17 for them. That wasn't so hot. But, Georgia's down year was last year. And they had 2 losses that were to the 2 best teams that they played. But they're going to need to start winning games that matter when the spotlight's on in these championship games. And, beating Clemson would be great and everything, but it's not going to solve the long-term problem, which is that, if you don't beat Alabama and Atlanta, nobody's going to be nobody else in this group deals with the SEC, and that's just all there is to it. I mean, I think Oklahoma and Clemson have. I would say Oklahoma, probably, and then Clemson have the quickest and easiest path to the playoff. It's not like Ohio State has got a bunch of bruisers in the Big Ten right now, but at least I have respect for that.
Yeah, I think the top 5, all teams deserve to be there, and I think that's
I do too.
Most people's top 5. And after that, it gets a little murky. How good is Notre Dame? How good is Oregon?
Well, Notre Dame.
Carolina.
I don't like the rest of this top 10. I'll tell you right now.
Right. It is a clear top 5,
Yeah.
and these top 5 teams are going to be very, very good this season. After that, I think a lot of those teams who are in this top 10 and top 15 could lose 2 or 3 games. So I do think it's this top 5. A sizable gap, and then the Notre Dame's, North Carolina's, whoever and whoever.
I do think Texas A&M as a program is more prepared to challenge that top 5 group and win. I mean, I don't think there's any of those top 5 teams that A&M can't beat. Okay,
on their best game. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame beat Clemson. They've lost to Alabama at least once, Georgia twice. They don't have a real great record against that top bunch. Georgia's only played Alabama, so they haven't beaten any of those teams. Oklahoma's record against the top 5, I don't think they've beaten any of them. I skipped Georgia beating Oklahoma. And then Ohio State and Clemson have traded wins and losses of late. I think Texas A&M can beat people. Notre Dame is this is as good as Notre Dame has been in a long time, Matt. In my childhood, in my sort of adolescent years, Notre Dame was a legitimately good football power. They're not that right now. And then,
I know you like Ian Book a lot. They don't have.
I did, and he's gone. I mean, he was a really good quarterback who could not do it by himself. When you keep going down this list, I mean, Cincinnati is at 10. They play Notre Dame this season. I am very curious. I believe they play Notre Dame this season. Let me double check. But that's going to be that's a program I will be watching. I really think that they are a good team, or they were a good team in 2020. You can watch them and see they are solid. They play Oklahoma. Notre Dame Cincinnati is going to be probably going to be a top 10 game on October 2nd, and I think Notre Dame will win that game, but I think that's a game you got to watch if you're everybody else. If Cincinnati wins that game, I don't know, but
Who does Georgia play that week?
I believe
Yeah.
Auburn.
Okay.
I believe Auburn off the top of my head. That's the
Yeah, 'cause
first.
I'd love to watch that Notre Dame game live if we can. But I got to get your take on. I think Ole Miss is a good team. I saw them at 25, like below teams like Coastal Carolina and all that stuff. I know you love the fighting Willie Corns over there, but I, to have a lot of these teams ahead of teams like Ole Miss who can score on just about anyone, I think it's crazy. But
I just
I'm
don't
higher on
understand.
Ole Miss than 25.
Well, they're going to score, as you said. Look, I went to a small school. I got nothing against small schools. I'm for them, but we've gotten to the point where it's a little bit silly with Coastal and Lafayette because you know I can't recall who Coastal lost to last year, but nobody in the top 25 should be losing a game like that. And
Ole Miss would be favored against both of those
yeah,
teams, right?
I think so. I mean, I don't see how they wouldn't. You just look at right now what's happened in college football, Matt, is that it's been consolidated with 5 teams. There are 5 teams in college football who have all been in the top 10 the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, since 17, 18, 19, 20. They're all the top 5 teams. And I think that you can again. You say Texas A&M is emerging. Well, let's just see if Florida is continuing to emerge. I don't know. I think they'll probably take a step back. They were ranked 11, man. I thought that was relatively high.
Yeah. I think you're right, especially after all they lost, especially Kyle Trask. I don't expect anyone on the roster to throw the ball as well as he did last year. I think they're going to take a step back there. But there's a lot of hype around Oregon and North Carolina. I think a lot of people like Penn State
I do
too.
think
So
Oregon is a good
yeah.
program. I don't know if they can. What do you make of
USC has a good team.
what do you make of Carolina? I mean, you're talking about a top 10 ACC school that looked to me good against A&M in the Orange Bowl. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't
They
know.
can win in that conference for sure. If you look at their schedule,
The
they
only
should be
game that
able to win.
matters that they play in
Yeah.
that conference is the Clemson game. Can they beat Clemson or not?
I don't think they even played this year in
They
the regular
don't. They
season.
don't. But they would.
It's
And
it's
Bama,
crazy.
Bama and Georgia don't play.
But I
Uh,
will say North Carolina is recruiting very well. Mac Brown has done an excellent job there. Now he's not going to be there forever.
no.
The program is going to be, how more, how they can rise is who the next guy is after Mac Brown. They're going to have to keep this up and landing high 4 stars and a few 5 stars here and there. But if they continue to win and recruit that way, and these guys don't bail, especially, I think we're going to see a lot of transfers with the NIL stuff. You can make more money at Georgia than North Carolina. So maybe we'll see if a lot of those guys stick around there for their whole career. But they're doing a great job right now in that conference. They're bringing in players. We'll see how good they are. They got the quarterback this year, so I do think they'll be pretty good this year. We'll see if 22 they can keep that up and continue to be a top 15, maybe top 10 team, or if they take a big step back after Sam Howell leaves.
Well, they're going to take a back. Yeah, they're going to go backwards a little bit. When you look at this group just after the top 10, Florida, Oregon, LSU, Southern Cal, Wisconsin, Miami. I mean, you're starting to talk about programs that have issues on. I say programs. You're talking about teams that got question marks. I mean, Ed Orgeron's job is on the line. Whether anybody wants to say that out loud, I don't know. But at 13, LSU, that for all the problems that LSU has, that's not a bad place to start the season.
Yeah.
For the issues the Gators have coming into the year, to start 11, I mean, that suggests you're going to be playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. You might be playing Iowa State and lose again in a Big 12 to a Big 12 team, but I don't know. I mean, as I go down this list, man, you see Florida, LSU, USC, Texas, Penn State. These are teams that should be in the top 10 as programs,
Yeah.
and they're not. And again, I think the lesson of the last few years, and I think NIL is only going to make this worse, is that there's been a consolidation at the top, and it's been one team in each conference except the SEC. People want to say Alabama. Well, you know, 3 teams have won the conference in the last 4 seasons in the SEC. Only Ohio State has won the Big Ten. Only Clemson has won the ACC. Only Oklahoma has won the Big 12. So it's not been the same in those leagues as it has been in the SEC. It's been a little bit more splintered with LSU, Alabama, and Georgia winning it lately. I don't know if Carolina can break through against the ACC is so watered down, man, that it's hard to see how you get traction and break it up. The Pac-12 is so bad, generally speaking. Is Penn State, can they really challenge Ohio State? Can Iowa? Can Indiana? I mean, it's not a great league anymore, and it's very tilted toward Ohio State. I don't see Michigan even being ranked here.
If Penn State doesn't beat Auburn, then we know what type of program they are. They should beat Auburn.
They should
at
totally
home.
beat Auburn. Yeah, I agree.
We'll see how good they are there. Is Iowa State a top 10 team because teams like Miami and Penn State have fallen back, or is Iowa State really a top 10 team? I don't think they are. I think it's because these other programs just have fallen back and they haven't gotten to where they should be, like you said, a top 10 program.
Well, they won a New Year's Six game. That's not, I mean, that's sort of like Georgia going to the Final Four in basketball. So they're a solid team that has a quarterback that has known what he's doing, a coach that certainly has done a very good job. I'm not hating on Iowa State, Carolina, Cincinnati, or even the Gators. Okay.
Indiana, I think they're around there too.
Indiana is at 17, Iowa at 18. These are programs that have done solid jobs, and it reflects that at 17 and 18. But, Texas, coaching change. Penn State, not a good year last year. James Franklin, vastly overrated. I think you just start throwing people in at the end. I mean, because if you didn't have, would Coastal beat Auburn? Would Coastal beat Utah? Would Coastal beat Northwestern? Would Coastal beat TCU? Would Coastal beat Michigan? Would Coastal beat UCF? Would Coastal beat Boise? Why is Kentucky not ranked?
Yeah, Kentucky's beating Coastal Carolina.
Kentucky is ranked 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They got Kentucky as the number 37 team in the country. Now, look, that's not reality. They're at least a top 30 team. I don't know. I think sometimes these coaches polls, Dabo Swinney had Ohio State ranked. They were 11th?
Dabo's the one who voted for Lafayette in Coastal. He's one of those guys.
Well, I'm sure he is voting for Coastal at the bottom. And again, it sounds like I'm like hating on it. I don't care about the Chanticleers. They can it's a great story. They have a teal field. They beat a BYU team that had no business losing to them last year, but they're not a top 25 team. And just because, this is kind of where I get aggravated with what goes on is that, they'll play Kansas and beat them, and people will say, oh, well, they should really be ranked. And you're going, what? Like, can we live in reality here a little bit? If you're a top 25 team, you don't lose to Liberty. They lost to Liberty last year, man.
Are they ranked?
No, they're not ranked.
Okay. They got my guy Malik Willis over there. Liz, Ole Miss is putting 50 on the Chanticleers.
Yeah,
the Chanticleers aren't putting 50 on Ole Miss. I can't see it. But that's just where we are. I'm pulling for them. I like Ole. It's
a fun story, man.
Yeah.
But
it's a baseball program. And it is fun. It's a fun story. Like you said, they're not a top 25 team.
They won the national championship of baseball. I don't think anybody's looking to go to Coastal for baseball either. But they're not. The problem is, man, I guess we're going to keep doing the same thing that we do like with other teams. I would have really liked to have seen them play Louisiana Lafayette. It didn't happen. It's what it is. And they had an undefeated season. They did play Coastal, beat them. But they didn't get to play the championship game. I stand corrected. But teams that are in the top 25, they don't beat Georgia Southern by 2. They don't beat Georgia State in overtime by a field goal. They don't beat UAB by 4. That's Arkansas State, you win by a touchdown, and then you beat Appalachian State on the road by 3. What that is a really awesome story for teams who are in the Sun Belt. They shouldn't be ranked in the top 25. Now, with that rant over, though, Matt, as you know, you got to put somebody in if you're not going to put Coastal and Lafayette in there. And who are you going to put in? You're going to put Auburn in? You're going to put Utah in? You're going to put Northwestern? The problem with college football right now is that the top has consolidated. And you know that from covering recruiting for a long time.
It has been.
It has been now for about a half a decade. LSU can come in and win the national championship, which to me means Texas A&M could come and win the national championship. But, is Wisconsin? No, they're not going to. Is Miami? It doesn't seem like it to me. So we've just gotten to the point where it's been consolidated. People hate that. They say they hate that. But parity is not existing right now in college football, and it might not in the future.
Quick question. Do you think it's going to continue to be this way over the next 5-10 years? Or do you think that the transfer portal, NIL, all of that stuff combined will help these other programs jump towards that top 5 group?
Listen, you just asked for the next 5 or 10 years, and that's hard to know the answer to. Yeah. Clemson, Oklahoma will be in the SEC in 5 to 10 years. So their life will change pretty dramatically. Clemson, can they keep this up for 10 years? Let me say this. I don't think any of these teams can keep it up for the next 10 years. Alabama is a complete anomaly in college athletics. In any sport over the last 50 years, they are Georgia Gymnastics with Suzanne Yocklin, and they're just racking up 10 national championships over a 15-year period. It's just weird. It's not going to continue. You would bet that it won't continue. Nick Saban's going to be 80. As long as Nick's there, they're going to do pretty well. Is Lincoln Riley going to be in Oklahoma for the next however many years? I suspect that Ryan Day actually will be in Columbus. I suspect that Kirby will be at Georgia. I suspect that Dabo will be at Clemson. But I don't know that they will all be able to run programs the way that they will. What will happen at Florida? What will happen at Texas? What will happen at USC and LSU? College football has always been a sport that is dictated on what happens at the top and can you break through. And typically that's been national powers, SC, Alabama, people like that. Texas has been dormant for a long, long time. Can they wake up and get it right? USC has been dormant for a while. Now, it's not been as bad as Texas, but can Michigan get their act together? Doesn't seem like it right now. What happens if Dan Mullen leaves the Gators? Because I don't think we're going to see Dan Mullen go on a 10-run tear. What happens?
Is there any coach out there that can get Tennessee back? That's a program we don't even mention anymore about even getting back to relevancy. Maybe the schedule is too hard every year. Maybe it's just they can't recruit. There's a lot that has made Tennessee drop off the last 20 years. Did they ever get back? That might be another video for another time, but just wanted your quick thoughts there.
Poor Tennessee.
Yeah,
they can get back, but they don't have the what will happen over time is that the inherent advantages that Georgia, Florida, Texas, and USC have will not be the advantages that Oklahoma, Clemson, Tennessee, Iowa State, Nebraska, and Oregon don't have, which is there's not a lot of kids in their state.
Yeah.
Clemson isn't a state, but that's the challenge. If you're Oklahoma and Clemson and you don't have it rolling, it can go away. See Tennessee, okay? Or see if you're Clemson, see every year from 1990 to 2010. So it can go away. Notre Dame has that challenge, but they recruit nationally. So it is challenging. Any coach that's the right fit at their institution, Dabo at Clemson, Pete Carroll at SC, Nick Saban anywhere, they can make it work. But there are other places, LSU, Georgia, Florida, Texas in theory, that it doesn't take very long. It takes 2 years, and then you're rolling and you're scary. So that's the part that's different. whether that will be a 10-year thing, we don't even know what college football is going to look like in 10 years, Matt. That's the problem. So I don't know. But your final thoughts here on the top five?
Not surprising at all. Those are the top five
Do you
teams.
think Alabama is the best team?
Going into this, I think they deserve to be number one going into the season. Are they the best team? We won't find that out, but I think they deserve to be number one.
I think we'll find out here in the next 4 months when they play in Atlanta, because either their season is going to be determined by, or their SEC season is going to be determined by, do they beat Texas A&M and get to Atlanta, and then do they win the game in Atlanta? They've done both of those things a lot lately. So I suspect that I would vote the number one. I'm not sure I would vote Clemson too, but I don't know if there's a certain number two though, man.
Yeah, I don't think it's them right now. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think number two is a little high for Clemson. They deserve to be there after what they've done the past 3 years. They're obviously
the last 3 years don't have
three
anything
program.
to do. Yeah,
but I don't know if they're the second best team in the country right now.
You're using the logic that people are using for the top 25 being having Coastal in there, which is what you did last year is what matters this year, and it doesn't, and that's the difference. It is hard to project these things. Let's see you over on the website. Thanks for watching. Dog Post. Matt DeBerry and Dean Legge. Bye.